Welcome. You're watching the France 24 debate. From the ouster of the president in Kiev to the takeover of Crimea by Russia, and now the spiraling standoff in the east, Ukrainians find themselves trying to stave off civil war. This Monday, the once pro-Russian, now pro-Kiev mayor of Ukraine's second largest city, Kharkiv, in serious condition after being shot in the back. On Sunday, the self-proclaimed mayor of Sloviansk displaying blindfolded men, which he claims are Ukrainian special forces, and staging a press conference with OSCE observers who've been his captives since Friday. Elsewhere in Donetsk, a local TV station knocked off air and replaced by Russian station Russia 24. At the same time, Washington and Brussels expanding sanctions. We'll be spelling out those measures and ask about their effectiveness with our panel. We'll also look at the other cards the West has in its hands in what's fast becoming a proxy standoff in what some are already calling a new Cold War. Today in the France 24 debate, we're asking who's going to blink first. With us to talk about it, France's former ambassador to Ukraine, Philippe de SUREMAIN. Thanks for being with us. Thanks as well from Moscow to Dmitry SUSLOV of the Council on Foreign and Defense Policy. WASYLINA of the Observatory of the Black, Gulf and Mediterranean Seas. Thank you for being with us. And Boris, who teaches economics at the University of Paris Est Créteil. Thank you for being former advisor to the Ukrainian government in the 1990s. The France 24 debate, where you can always join the conversation, and you have on Facebook and on Twitter our hashtag F24debate. Now for the latest, let's first go to Douglas HERBERT, who joins us now from eastern Ukraine. Douglas, the shooting of the mayor of Kharkiv, so far, authorities are not saying who done it.
Too much more information other than that he's apparently still unconscious at this hour. But I will tell you, Francois, from what we've been out in the field today, in and around Donetsk, north of Donetsk, and it's been a day really of ratcheting tensions on both sides. And we saw absolutely no signs that there's really any will or any sign, forget the Geneva Accords, that anyone is preparing to lay down arms, to take up checkpoints, to lift blockades. Really, for us, the day started just south of Sloviansk, about an hour's drive north of Donetsk, where I am right now, in the town of Konstantinovka, where basically heavily armed pro-Russian militants seized control of the town hall there early in the day. We arrived just as they were beginning to put up sandbags and concrete blocks and barricades around that city hall. Lots of locals gathering, lending their support, shouting their support to these paramilitary soldiers, once again in a very familiar pattern, bearing no insignia of any kind. But when we spoke to the residents and said, who are these people right now who've seized control of your city hall, they said, they're our friends, they're here to protect us. And the only one person really throughout the entire morning dared to voice a dissenting view. When he did, he was sort of surrounded, shouted down by very angry locals. The separatists and the people who tend to show up at these building seizures and occupations tend to be not just very separatist for the separatist cause or for a lot greater autonomy, but they're also very vocal and they want you to know how they feel. So they have the loudest voices. But I will also say that just a little while ago back here in Donetsk, in the capital of this region, there were clashes a little over an hour ago at the tail end of a rally that was a pro-Ukrainian rally. We went to the scene just after the worst of the clashes happened. We came upon several injured people, bandages around their head, some bloodied on the face, around the legs. They told us what had happened is, out of nowhere, a band of young people that they described as pro-Russian elements started rampaging through the crowd. They were armed with baseball bats, iron bars, sort of swinging, hitting people at random. We spoke to ambulance workers. At least 15 people were injured in these clashes. From what we understand, they're so far the worst clashes that I've seen since I've been here between pro-Ukrainian, pro-Russian supporters. Now, you could say that this was a minority group, these pro-Russians who were rampaging, and obviously they do not reflect the view of most people in this town, but it does show signs of a very violent undertow, a very violent undercurrent, ready to sort of break through at any moment. So very tense here in Donetsk tonight, excuse me. And I just may note the regional TV center also remains occupied at this hour, occupied by pro-Russian separatists once again, who are vowing to make sure that that station broadcasts a Russian state channel, a state channel that they say they can trust to tell the truth, because they say Ukrainian stations do not tell the truth, or at least not their truth as they see it.
On Sunday evening in Kharkiv, there were clashes like the ones you've just described involving football supporters. Are they playing a role?
Yeah, the football supporters, it's a very big issue here. You have a big team, the Shakhtar, based on the coal mining team. The ultras here, as they call them, are very, very much, they can be very nationalist-minded. We ourselves haven't been to any of the football matches yet, but everyone has been talking about them. There have been, the matches have been going on, often playing Kiev. So it's very unclear how, what's going to happen in the next few days, and whether or not these ultras are going to, or either of the sides, excuse me, in these matches is going to turn violent.
Douglas Herbert, stay with us, because I wanted to ask the panel a bit their reaction to some of what you've just said. I'll begin with you, Philippe de Surmain. Yeah. The shooting of the mayor of Kharkiv, again, we don't know who did it at this particular point. What was your view when you first heard that? What did you think?
But I think it's a disastrous event, because Kharkiv is a very important town. The second one, the second university in this center. It was the third center for scientific research during the Soviet Union.
Thanks.
That means this is maybe one of the biggest center of Ukraine. And in the 19th century and even before, the pro-Ukrainian movement rose there. So it's a very, the social composition of this town is extremely complex. It's an intellectual center, and there you see in a very evident way the confrontation between two kinds of societies.
All right, we have a reaction coming in on Facebook from Sean. The mayor was opposed to Russia, not the Ukrainian government. I believe everyone understands the sanctions are in response to Russian actions in Ukraine. Boris NAJMAN, is that your interpretation?
Yeah, Kern has changed his point of view about 2 weeks ago, and he came much more closer to the Ukrainian government this last 2 weeks. So it's difficult. Today we don't have the information, you're right. But clearly, usually the practices of this kind of regime, I will say in Moscow, is to try to eliminate or to target people that have been in a moment closer to them and then betray them. It's a classical method usually used. So the people that are targeted are usually people that have some information or been loyal on one moment and they change side. This is the first enemies for Moscow.
When you hear Douglas Herbert, our correspondent, describe what he saw driving from Donetsk to Sloviansk and back, would you say, how close are we to a state of civil war at this point?
I don't like the term of civil war because I think the war is against civils, rather than civil war. And what we see is that there is a massive foreign intervention at the moment. So it's not like a civil war where we think that neighbors are fighting together. It's rather well organized. As you can see, people have weapons. They enter immediately with weapons in official buildings. So it's not like, it's not like I call it horizontal violence. It's really organized in a way, very organized.
WASYLINA?
It's the events are moving and accelerating as we see, and face even of sanctions that are supposed to be imposed. There's a great move to destabilize, of course, before the elections. This is the whole objective. We know that are supposed to happen on the 25th of May. You've seen the advance in referendums, even in Crimea and even in the East for the 11th of May, for example, advancing the calendar ahead and then destabilizing underneath. trying to get in, as I have friends in Dnipropetrovsk, they're telling me all these things and how it's being done and what they've done for their city, for example. They've just basically set up order and protection around the city, and so they're trying to avoid infiltration, if you will, into this city.
Douglas Herbert, do you get the sense, speaking to people, that it's really all about that May 25th date when Ukraine is supposed to elect a president?
Well, let's remember something. Yes, a lot of it is about the May 25th election, although there's a date that a lot of people have their eye on even sooner than that, and that is this May 11th, the proposed date, at least among the leaders of the Donetsk region, for a referendum. Now, at this point, it's very unclear in a lot of people's minds here exactly what this referendum will be about. Is it about granting greater autonomy in the form of a federalized system to residents of the Donetsk region? Is it about breaking away and joining Russia? Now, as of now, there is a proposed question, and it's basically, are you in favor of more sovereignty for the Donetsk region? The confusion comes in is a lot of people don't seem to really understand, if you ask them and try to probe them a little more, what is the difference between what the local, the government in Kiev is offering, has on the table, which is greater autonomy for the people of this region in the form of being able to elect their own local leaders, having more control over their finances, generally having more say to determine their own fate. The difference between that and what they say is federalism, because federalism, the lines begin to blur a lot, and it seems that federalism has become a term that a lot of people don't have any concrete definition for, but it also seems to become a code word for simply rejecting whatever Kiev has to offer. So it's interesting there. People are talking about this referendum. We were in Sloviansk yesterday. We saw what amounted to a campaign appearance outside the building where those OSCE monitors, the observers, are being held. This man, Oleg Saryov, came out and he basically said that people asked him, do you support the referendum? Now, he's running. He is the regional candidate, supposedly, in the May 25th presidential election. It was a very difficult question to be put to him by the residents of this town, because if he says he recognizes the referendum, it implies he doesn't recognize the May 25th presidential election, in which he's a candidate. So he was silent at first, and when he was pressed, he finally says, yeah, I support the referendum, but he didn't seem too enthusiastic in his response. A lot of confusion here, but yes, as you suggest or are asking, Francois, there is a sense that the presidential election, as things are now, as events are moving quickly, as your guest said today, it's going to be very difficult to see how that can be held under safe, fair, transparent circumstances in this region. And I'll just add that the leaders of the Donetsk region have come out and said they do not recognize the election, and no candidate running in it represents their interests.
Philippe de SUREMAIN, when you were ambassador to Ukraine, did you ever think it would come to this?
I never thought that I will attend such events, because I travel a lot around the country, and I went in many times in Donetsk, even in Lugansk, and of course in Kharkiv, and I could never imagine that there will be such an evolution, because the country was rather calm. Maybe people were not very much involved in the political life, but there was no tension. And by the way, when I travel, I always spoke only Russian. I have no problem anywhere. And those who are speaking Ukrainian, going to Donetsk or to Lugansk, could speak their own language, and there was always this feeling that everybody understands the language of the others. And you see that now on the TV. It's very, for those who cannot understand one of the other language, it's quite difficult to follow a discussion, because everybody is speaking in its own language.
Do you get a sense that the people now of the east of Ukraine, a lot of them don't feel Ukrainian?
All the statistics which were done and the social poll shows that in each region, the majority of the people feels themselves as Ukrainian, but Ukrainian in their own way. And I remember when I met the governor of Kharkiv, Kushnaryov, a very clever man, the idea that he would have to obey to somebody coming from Lviv, he felt uncomfortable, and the same on the contrary. So there is a very strong regional identity.
So is there room for compromise then by coming up with a federal plan from what you've heard Douglas Herbert just say?
The word, the term of federalization is very ambiguous, because there are those who are for federalization, the others are for regionalization or decentralization. So in fact there is a subtext which is quite different. We know that Russia is very much for federalization, and yes, proposed very strong decentralization, and that could be that shows that there is a possible compromise, but the problem is not in the words, is behind it, in the intentions who are behind this.
So how do we get from here to May the 11th to May the 25th, and May the 11th, the date of that local referendum?
I think that the issue is that, to be honest, we have to be honest here, Russia is not, even if you put on the table something that is really decentralized, they're not willing to sign it.
But they did in Geneva, didn't they, 2 weeks
ago? Yeah, but to
ago?
respect it. They're willing to sign it, but never to implement it. So in a way, what you have, the basic problem that you have is that you have people with guns in the street, and what you have to do, whatever election you do, you have to ask these people during the election process to take the guns out of the streets, because you don't have election with people with guns in the streets, with illegals in the streets, taking hostages, killing people. It's not possible. So, but Russia is not willing to pressure them to give back the guns. And this is unacceptable. We have OSCE people, hostages at the moment. This is clearly, unacceptable for Europe at the moment. I think we have to be very clear. It's people with diplomatic status that are at the moment taken and not invited, as they say. It's clearly, it's a war crime, to be clear, in another way.
A war crime is what you're saying.
Yeah.
We're going to get the reaction of Dmitry SUSLOV, who's just joined us from Moscow. When we come back, we have to take a quick break. Stay with us. You're watching the France 24 debate.